From struggling in the roughest neighborhoods of Augusta, Georgia, to rising to the rank of captain, the fastest out of anybody in the Burke County Fire Department, my father, John David Mosquera, has led quite an interesting life. Many of the lessons that he went through and many of the decisions that he made at the time greatly influenced what he's taught me to this day, and he's definitely the most important figure to my life. In this speech, I will be going over his early childhood, growing up here in Augusta, Georgia, the many trials and tribulations he went through in his early life that shaped who he is today. Then I'll also be going over his early adulthood, around about the time when he first had me and my little sister, and the challenges that were introduced into his life via fatherhood, via marriage to my mother, and an assortment of other things. And finally, I'll be touching on his middle adulthood, where he is now, and in the many ways that he still continues to amaze me, in the many ways that he continues to be supportive of me. And I just really wanted to use this speech as an opportunity to be able to shine some light on all the great work that my father has done. So to start off, he actually originally wasn't even born in Augusta, Georgia. He was born on June 20th, 1982, in Trenton, New Jersey. But after about 3 years of living there, his younger brother, both my grandmother and my grandfather, all decided that they wanted to move to Augusta, Georgia, because that's just where more family was. They didn't have much money at all, honestly. My grandmother, she was unemployed for most of her life, and my grandfather wasn't a very active figure in my dad's life, so that led to him majorly being behind, especially in comparison to his peers. Many of the original struggles that he went through at this period of time was bullying because his clothes weren't the newest, or being outcasted because he wasn't like many of his peers, and that led to him getting into fights, honestly just being the center of a lot of confrontation, and he changed schools multiple times during this period of his life. This is also when he began to become active around the wrong crowd of people, and they became negative influences to him. And it would lead to him getting involved in almost illegal activities, and it led to him being very close to making decisions that could have greatly affected the way that his life would plan out, and honestly could have made it to where he wouldn't even have known me. And I think that is really just an example of God really being there for him in his life, that he lived to even be able to have me, and lived to continue to teach me to not make the same mistakes that he did in his early coming up years. And then moving on to his adulthood, I'd say about 18 to 22, 23. He was still very active in the more illegal activities, but he wasn't doing it because he wanted to. He was doing it because he had no choice. It was around this time when he first had me. He had me when he was 22 years old. And it was difficult for him to maintain a job due to his previous record of misconduct, is what we'll call it. And he was just looking for any way to be able to support both me and my mother. I'm sorry. And that's when the opportunity came up for him to become a firefighter at the Burke County Fire Department. He originally didn't want to do it. He was terrified of what might happen. He felt like he wasn't prepared to go in and take the physical test that firefighters are required to take. He felt like he just couldn't see himself being a firefighter at all. But that's why I have to thank my mother, because she was the one who eventually was the figure who inspired him to go about it, and she almost forced him in a way to go ahead and go take the test, both physical and the written test. And he passed it with flying colors. He was one of the best candidates that they had ever had. And so, for the next 13 years, he maintained this position, just steadily climbing up in ranks as the years went on. And eventually, when year 13 came around, was when he was promoted. He was promoted to captain, and that's the fastest that anybody has ever been promoted to captain in the Burke County Fire Department. And it was a really big accomplishment for not only him, but also me, because I was around to see him elevate, elevate as a person. I was there to see him change. I was there to see him start out as a private and very weary and scared in a way of what might happen. But he did keep a sense of optimism, and he always went by the motto of if you're going to do something, you might as well do it all the way. And that is something that I admire about him, and it's something that I try to keep with myself still to this day when I go into my own adventures in life. And he was always supportive of me no matter what mistakes I did, no matter what it is that I might have messed up on, anything like that. He was always such a good role model and such a good parental figure that I honestly couldn't ask for any better parent. I think it's because of his past and because of the decisions that he made back then that he's able to steer me into the right direction now. And honestly, he says that because of that very sentiment, he doesn't regret anything he did. And I'm just thankful that God not only introduced him into my life, but he allowed my dad to be able to go through those experiences and relatively come out unscathed. There were still some consequences and still some sacrifices that had to be made, but it would go on to later on in the future when he had me give my dad the blueprint essentially to teaching me how to be a man and teaching me how to be a responsible person. And for that, I'm forever grateful for all the sacrifices he's made, for all the risks he took, not knowing exactly where it was going to go. I deeply appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And now, what he's doing now, he's currently supporting me in my ventures of looking around for different colleges. He's supporting me in my ventures of pursuing the career that I want to. And he's just making sure that I'm staying on the right path, just making sure that I'm not doing anything, definitely not doing anything that he used to do. And I appreciate him so much because even with the many mistakes that he told me about and he told me to stray away from, I still end up making some of those same mistakes. But he doesn't judge me for it. He's just so open and honest about it. And I'm not afraid to tell him about some of the mistakes that I make because I understand that he's not going to look at me different because I may have done something because I'm already knowing what I do doesn't even hold up to a fraction of the trouble that he got into when he was my age. So it's comforting to know that there's somebody who at least understands. And in closing, my dad is one of the best men I ever met. He went through his own struggles, his own terrible circumstances where he really was not supposed to succeed at all. But he fought through it, he persevered, and fast forward to now, he's been with me to make sure that I became a successful young man 100% of the way. And I just appreciate him so much for that. It's just his presence in my life is just so big, and I can't get over it. A motto that he always told me is that it's better to take the hard way than the easy way, because from the hard way, you learn from it, and you gain something that you don't from the easy way. And that's something that I'll hold with me till the day I die. Thank you.